Launch just sent over their X431 bi-directional scan tool because last year I said this,
thereby making this our preferred scan tool on the recommended tool list.
And although the year has just begun, Launch is looking to make this scan tool the best budget bi-directional scan tool of 2024. And at this price point, if this thing even comes remotely close in terms of performance and features of that auto fix, they have a very strong claim to that name. So let's plug it in and find out. We'll first jump into the diagnose section, then auto detect, which is becoming an industry standard amongst newer scan tools. I did also use a scan tool prior to this video because I had to use it for my smog test that was coming up. And there was a feature in here that I really needed to use in order to make sure that I would pass. So if your test is also coming up, make sure to stick around to the end, and especially if you have a stage 2 tune. That way you make sure that you pass your smog without any issues. And everything that's happening right now is in real time. As soon as the auto VIN detection is done, go ahead and confirm that it's correct, and it will enter its quick scan or basic scan diagnosis test, where it will test most of the common issue areas for codes to pop up on the car. And it should take less than a minute. It's actually pretty quick. So as you can see, it will give your vehicle's information. If you have a shop, you can put that in the settings portion of the scan tool and that will pop up there. But as you can see, we are pretty healthy in terms of our car's scanning report. And if you really want, you can also send this to yourself or the customer as a report.
Alternatively, you could send this to yourself as well to keep as a reminder, or if you just want to read it on a bigger screen. I also like how there's a summary at the top, then each section has a drop-down menu to keep things nice, neat, and compact.
Then we can back out of this. And as soon as you back out, you'll be met with all of the active codes that have popped up. And most of this stuff I do know about. It's not that big of an issue. For example, the CIC, this is probably because we have the aftermarket head unit in. The ASD, this is probably because we have the bypass harness plugged in, plus we coded out from BIMR code. So if you want, you can clear it all out. And if you plan to use this as a pre-purchase inspection tool when you're looking to buy your car, this is also a good technique to use. If you scan the car with the scan tool and a bunch of things pop up, it's nothing to concern yourself with immediately, because sometimes these codes pop up and they never go away because either the person never cleared the code, or say for example, the person thought the code was cleared out because the check engine light turned off. And so they just never cleared the code. In that case, you would scan the car, clear the codes before your test drive, go on the test drive, and if they come back up after you've cleared them, then those are the ones that you need to be concerned with. And depending on how many codes you need to clear, or if you're doing like a 1-for-1, it may take longer versus another. It just really depends on what code you're trying to clear. Then from there, you can send a report again if you really want to. But as I stated before, it's kind of meaningless if you just clear a code to clear it. To know if the code is really active, you have to clear it, drive the car around for a little bit, and if it pops back up, then it's an issue. If it doesn't, then it's not an issue. So we can back out of that. And this is the other portion of the diagnose section. Rather than going to the auto detect, go to BMW, hit OK. Just know that the layout might be a little bit different than what you're used to. So just be patient with yourself. But you can do like automatic search, which is similar to the auto VIN detect, but you can also do manually select. Say for instance, the auto VIN detection didn't work, or it selected a different chassis for whatever reason. You go to 2 series, this is the F22, And here we can go into the health report, which is kind of like the quick scan over again. The drive, and these are all the drive related modules, your chassis, all of your chassis related modules, and body, same thing, all of the modules related to that component of the car. And as you can see, we have a lot more modules and a lot more things that we can look at. So this is like the more in-depth version of that basic scan. So if we were to do a health report, this is the first time I'm doing it on this side of the diagnosis section. So I'm wondering if this will give us like a in-depth scan or an in-depth report, which we should expect is going to be longer or take longer, if it is in fact that, than our basic scan. Let's see what we have here. So the central gateway module, we knew about that from before. CIC came back up. Air conditioning, this is probably just because when you're doing prolonged coating on the car, I forgot to say this earlier, you should hook your car up to battery tender. That way your battery doesn't drain and you have enough power to sustain the entire coating session. Let's just see report. Okay, so it's still a basic diagnosis report. Whatever this says, basic diagnosis report, that may not necessarily be a basic report. This could just be what launch puts in terms of like the header for the reports to be sent out to the customer or to yourself. You can, as you'll see here in just a second, you can actually select what you want. So let's see here, ECM. In the ECM, oh, okay, so we can't do that right now, actually. Let's see what we can do. Let's try something else. Let's go to chassis. Let's do ABS. Okay. It'll give you information about the module. Let's see here. Module information, which was that information that we looked at before. And let's see here if we can read data stream. Brake pad wear sensor. See the ones in the front and the rear. Hit OK. Value, the status is OK. Report. And then what that does is it'll save the report. You go into the settings portion. Go to data. And you have your diagnostic reports here that you can select. And that should be the one that we just did. Yep, time matches up. ABS and the two sensors. You can also send this as well. Go back to diagnose. Let's see here. Brake pressure sensor. Via the pedal. Hit OK. And let's see here. If I put my foot on the brake, does that change? And it does. So it's good that we can pull live data and we can even graph it. So you can see that graph in real time too. Or just to hold that. Boom. All right. So we are able to do graphing as well. Let's see here. If we were to do a report, settings, data. Okay. Let's see if we can get that graph. Okay, so we can't necessarily send the report to the graph, but we can screenshot it Okay, and it seems like it is the gloves. All right, so you could just screenshot the graph and then send the screenshot. And let's go ahead back out of that. Let's see if there's something else here. Drive. Let's try that ECM one more time. Whether the vehicle has equipped with the system, yes it does. Their ignition is switched on. Sometimes when that happens, what you need to do is just turn the car off and turn it back on really quick in order for the scan tool to sync up with the car. There are times where the scan tool will do it automatically, and in those cases, just let the scan tool do everything, but this is one of the times where we can do it manually. Let's see if it works this time around. And there we go. Read data stream. Diagnosis request. And here we can select a bunch of things. So let's see here. Now in the 2 series, we don't have an oil temperature gauge. But if you plug something in like a tap into your OBD2 reader, it will read the coolant level. But the coolant level can infer the oil temperature. So in the beginning, your water temperature will be higher. And then as the car starts running, the oil will become higher. So when the car is warming up, the coolant will be used to heat up the oil. And then once the car is running, the coolant, by its name, will start to cool the oil. As you can see right now, my car hasn't been running for a little bit, so the temperatures are about the same. The difference is only off by a little bit. Let's see. Let's actually combine these two. Okay. And okay, so we do have a graph. But because they're the same, they're going to look the same. Oh no, can you scan? Can you zoom in on this? No. Okay. Yeah, so you can see there's just a little bit of difference in the temperature, but that's because now the car's been sitting and the fluids have been, you know, kind of next to each other and everything is kind of normalizing out. But just know that there is a slight difference. It's not huge, but there is a slight difference. So that is actually normal to see that the numbers are off by just a little bit. It's only by like 1 degree. Let's see here. You can also look at your temperature of other components, the current. So there's a lot of things that you can look at on here. Oh, you can unselect all. And sometimes these things are only available when the car is actually running. You can actually test or read a lot of the information on these different modules. So that's the diagnosis report. Inside the ECM, so that is reading the different modules. You can do actuation tests to make sure that you're getting a signal to the component. So if, for example, you did the scan and it showed up as, you know, a module is broken or it's not working, you can jump into the actual module itself, actualization, and this is where the bi-directional functionality of the tool comes into place, where a lot of other scan tools will just tell you that something's wrong with the car, but a bi-directional scan tool can send information to the car, or in this case, commands to the car. Say there's several things going on in one area. It could be cooling. You might think that your water pump is starting to go out because the temperatures are going higher than normal. But after doing certain actualization tests, you realize that, oh, it's the fan that's not reacting, so I need to replace the fan versus the water pump. Let's do general. Electric fan. So you can do active. So that's letting us know that the fan is working in this case. So we had the module information, we could read the fault codes, we could clear them, we could read the data stream. Let's see, read freeze frame. No fault code. This I actually don't know what it's for. So that's essentially what you can do in all of these different modules. You can read the code, you can clear them, you can look at the data, you can look at graphs, you can test the different modules in there if your car is fitted with them. If the car isn't fitted with them, you'll get an error code like, you know, couldn't communicate and didn't pop up, things like that. Let's see, what else? So that's the drive section. Chassis section, it's going to be the same thing. Power steering, same layout as before. The module information, reading code, clearing code, reading the data, freeze frame, I still don't know what that is, and the actuation test. So you can delete the memory or reset it. So this would be a little bit different for each module because of what you're actually able to do. But just so that you can see it, under drive, these are all the modules that you have available. Chassis, all of its modules, and body. So this is quite intensive. At this price point, you're getting a lot here. Wow, there's a lot going on in here. So we won't go into each and every one of them, but once you kind of figured out one, you've figured out all of them. You just need to know where the individual modules are located. You have your special functions. And I'm actually surprised, like this one's taking a little bit, but this scan tool for the testing that we're doing, it's pretty quick. I expected it to be much slower considering it's bidirectional and at the price point that it's at. But as far as I can tell, really the only drawbacks are the screen real estate as well as the cable. If anything, I would say that they should include a longer cable. Because you're using it as a bidirectional scan tool, a lot of times you'll want to bring this with you, you know, closer to the engine bay or to the other side of the car. That way you don't have to run to the opposite end of the car every time you're using this tool. So let's see here, special function. Let's go into drive. Oh, okay. Start up the oil circuit. Oh, wow. These are not in every scan tool that I've seen. Even some bidirectional ones. Walnut blasting. So this is really important for you N54 guys. When you walnut blast it, there's a certain sequence that you have to follow, and at least you have it in the scan tool. There's a lot in here. Start up the Valvetronic. Oh my goodness. Yeah, there's a lot in here that you can do. So this is a lot of features actually. I wasn't expecting this much at this price point. No way. So let's go ahead and back out. We can end the session. Back out there. Now OBD2, same thing. It will do like an automatic scan or VIN detection. And this one I haven't spent as much time in. However, just as a quick tip, when it tells you that something's, you know, that it's picked up or it's been able to scan something and it's compatible, just hit enter. At least, or typically one of them will be a yes and the rest will be no. So you just be wasting your time if you hit scan or all protocol scan. So you'll be searching through all the things that it can't detect. But if you want to, you can do that. But for now, just for the sake of time, we won't. So we can look at like some of our readiness modules. So the current
data stream that we have here. And again, some of these things like the catalyst monitor, it's not on because the car is not on, or it's not complete because the car is not on. O2 sensor, again, not complete, car's not on. Or after the codes were cleared, you can see that we have our modules that are ready. Heated, again, is not on, and it's not ready because the car is not on, so it's not ready to do anything because the car is off. O2 sensor monitor, that's to be expected. Let's see here. Read live data. And let's do something. Air temperature, barometric load value. Okay, so this seems engine oil coolant. Okay, so we can combine again, and let's see if this looks any different than before. No, it looks the same. So it looks like the OBD2 section of the scan tool is just a quicker way to get to your data, or at least certain components of it. Fuel system, intake air temperature, let's look at that. 71 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay. Let's do test results. Oh, you can actually look at different cylinders. Wow, so this is really good. So if you guys remember a while back, I had an issue with my ignition coils. I had no idea where it was. So like old school testing is like you move around the ignition coils and you can figure out which one's the bad one and you replace it. Here, you can actually look at cylinder 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And if any one of these aren't firing correctly, I mean, I know right now there's nothing there because the car's off, but if one of these were off, that means you know exactly where to go. You don't have to play that guessing game or waiting game. You'll just be able to pull it up right here, which would save you a lot of time and headache, because cylinders 5 and 6 are extremely difficult to get to. And if the problem is in cylinder 1 versus 5 and 6, then you don't have to waste your time removing all the bracing and covers and all that other stuff. You just replace the coil, if it is the coil, at position 1. If it's a spark plug, I would just recommend replace them all at the same time. And this will just take us into where we were earlier. And this is also good in terms of the smog, which we can start to address, because you can see here that we have readiness completed as 5, readiness not completed as 3, not supported 3. This is good. These two numbers should match up, because if, for example, not completed is 4 and not supported is 3, that means we have one that is not ready but is supported. That could hurt us when it comes time to smog the car. And as promised, the segment that's meant for all of you who are running one of these. If you're running a catless downpipe, you're probably also running a stage 2 tune. Personally, I use BM3, but this should work for any of the tuning platforms out there. Because if you live in a state like California, you might have to smog your off-road vehicle. And no, this scan tool isn't going to magically make your car pass smog with the catless downpipe, because as you can see, my downpipe is right here. The only way that you can reliably and consistently pass smog is by putting back in your catalytic converter, but you also have to reflash your car to the stock tune, but you also have to relock the DME in this process. If you don't, and you turned off the post-cat O2 sensor, when you reflash it to the stock tune without relocking the DME, that post-cat O2 sensor may remain off and enter something called limbo, where it doesn't come back on even though that you reflashed it. So in order to make sure that it turns on, make sure to relock the DME when you reflash it to the stock tune. However, don't drive to the smog station right away. In order for that post-cat O2 sensor to come on after the reflashing process,
you have to drive the car for about 100 to 200 miles, or you can expedite things with the drive cycle. Now, regardless of which one of those options you go with, I would still say that you should scan your car before you take it into the smog shop. Because believe it or not, you could pass everything from the visuals to the actual emissions themselves, but if those O2 sensors aren't reading, you're gonna fail your smog test. So save yourself some time, headache, and money, and scan your car to ensure that it'll pass smog. And in all honesty, any bidirectional scan tool should be able to do this. We just happen to have this one for our example.
For this, we'll go into the diagnose section and manually select the car, then drive, followed by the ECM. Once inside, select read data stream and click through to options. There are 12 streams we'll want to check. The 2 for emission warning lights, engine warning light status, and all 9 related to the oxygen sensors. Once you hit OK, don't be surprised if some of the sensors are off or not active if the car is cold. Just start up the car and let it warm up. In my case, it took 4 minutes for all the sensors to come online. During that time, if you see that there is power at both O2 sensors and that the value at the post-CAT O2 sensor is less than or equal to the pre-CAT O2 sensor, that's a good sign that you'll pass smog. Now just wait for all the sensors to come online and ensure the emission and engine warning lights remain off. Now you're ready to head over to the smog station. But if you want, you can even save this as a report.
So for less than $200, this is a pretty compelling offer. If you don't care about having a bigger screen or wireless connectivity or having all the bells and whistles of an Android tablet that's been converted into a scan tool, then yeah, this might just be the best scan tool of 2024. And we've only just begun. And if you want to see how else you can start the year off well with your car, then you'll want to check out this video. And I'll see you in that one.